God damn it, 2016! This was originally just going to be a tribute to author Richard Adams, but by coincidence, John Hurt also just died, who had a starring role in today's movie as Hazel, the lead rabbit. Was the cavalcade of death that was 2016 so inspirational that 2017 had to follow in its tracks? I'm sorry if this is overbearing, I just get really upset when talent dies. Richard Adams lived a simple life. After graduating from Bradfield College in 1938, he joined the British Army in 1940 and served until 1946. He got a late start as a writer, originally telling stories to his two daughters.
Well, I originally told the story to my two little girls in a serial bedtime story, but it continued in long car journeys. And when it was all finished, young Juliet said, "You ought to write that down, Daddy, it's too good to waste."
They encouraged him to write these stories down and publish them, and Adams finally agreed at the age of 54. Watership Down was his first book, published originally in 1972, and it became his biggest hit. He went on to write other books which didn't quite live up to the adventures of Hazel the Rabbit and his band of freedom fighters. Some of these titles included Shardik, Tales from Watership Down, the spiritual sequel of sorts, and the terrifying Plague Dogs, which was also made into a movie. Seriously, do not watch Plague Dogs. It is too dark. Don't do it. Do not do it. Do not! Despite none of his other books reaching the success of Watership Down, Adams was still a beloved and influential author. Millions around the world loved his work, including me, when I first read the book about the exiled rabbits. When I was 8.
The field, it's covered with blood.
Sadly, Richard Adams died at the age of 96 on December 27th, 2016.
Let me not to the marriage of true minds admit impediment. Love is not love that alters where it alteration finds, or bends with the remover to remove. Oh no, it is an ever-fixed mark that looks on tempest and is never shaken. It is the star to every wandering bark, whose worth's unknown, although his height be taken. Love's not time's fool, though rosy lips and cheeks within his fabled compass come. Love alters not with his brief hours and weeks, but bears it out, even to the edge of doom. If this be error, and upon me proved, I never writ, nor no man ever loved. It's a nice sonnet, isn't it?
Oh, it's lovely. Richard Adams, Aldo Galli, thank you.
The movie of Watership Down came out in 1978 and is one of the best examples of unintentional horror that I can think of. No doubt plenty of parents bought this thinking that it was a movie about cute bunnies being cute.
I had young children at the time, and I knew some kids would be responsive to it in a positive way and others would not. And so I thought the one sheet, the principal ad in the picture, should establish that it wasn't a kid's film. And that picture was that of Bigwig in a noose. And nothing could be more horrific than that. So I was always a little bit stunned when people say, "How could you make this for my child?" And I said, well, you saw the poster, and if you took your child to that, then, you know, you shouldn't have taken your child to it.
Whatever the case, Watership Down has this old school style to it that I find charming, and the stellar cast only bolsters that, including Richard Briers.
I know what we ought to be looking for. A high, lonely place with dry soil.
Zero Mostel.
Plenty trouble for you!
Harry Andrews.
And you'll be identified by your mark.
And of course, the recently departed John Hurt.
We all got into this together, we'll all get out of it together.
John Hurt was walking up the stairs and I recognized him instantly. And he said, you know, which floor is Watership Down on? And I said, it's on the top floor. And then he cracked this joke about it being like a rabbit warren. And I thought, well, that's a new one. I mean, you know, so that was John Hurt.
John Hurt was also talented, having appeared in dozens of movies and TV shows, including as Ollivander in the Harry Potter movie series, which, coincidentally, I just reviewed. He was renowned for his ability to disappear into a role, completely absorbing the character and delivering a show that few actors can actually achieve. This ability went so deep that it was sometimes hard for me to even pick him out in a few movies, like in V for Vendetta or in Alien.
Oh no, not again.
Sure, call me dense, but doesn't that just speak to Mr. Hurt's awesome talent? I just wish I had seen a few more of his movies while he was still around. John Hurt died at the age of 77 on January 25th, 2017. So just how traumatizing can a cartoon about bunnies really be? Well, let's find out for ourselves as we fall down the rabbit hole into... Wait, I used that line last month with the Alice in Wonderland review. Damn it! We open appropriately enough to the origin story of the world. That's right, you're not just getting a story about bunnies, you're getting a story about Frith, the god of the bunnies! One of the more inventive things about the book was how Adams not only created a unique origin for the world, as a rabbit might see things, but also a language called Lapine and the folk legend of Alarara, the prince with 1,000 enemies that we're watching here. Adams made an entire culture for rabbits, which not only makes a lot of sense, but explains their real-world behaviors. Why they're so skittish, how they function in groups, why they sit in rows and watch cars.
See? It's not interested.
And it's all shown in this stylized intro, narrated by Michael Hordern.
He had many friends, and they all ate grass together.
And at first, this may seem like a good cartoon for kids, until we get to the bunny murder. I don't know what's worse, this sudden tone shift or the fact that all these rabbits' friends are dying around them en masse and they're just all happily chomping away like nothing's happening. But it does result in rabbits getting the gifts of being fast, clever, and having excellent hearing. When God blesses Alarara's butt.
Sexual harassment, panda.
On to the real story, we see the animation for the rest of the movie in this more realistic style. It can be a bit jumpy at times and the lip syncing doesn't always match up.
Tell you the truth, I'm getting sick and tired of it. Sometimes I feel like clearing out of the Warren altogether.
But it reminds me of the older cartoons I grew up watching, so I still kinda like it, even if it sometimes does look like it's only using 10 frames of animation per second. We're introduced to the brothers Hazel and Fiver. Now, Fiver's name is a bit odd as explained in the book. Adams points out that rabbits are able to count up to 4, but Fiver was the 5th baby born from his litter, so I guess lazy nomenclature happened. But then if rabbits can only count up to 4, how do they understand 5? Whatever, I'm nitpicking. Hazel and Fiver live in a place called the Sandalford Warren. One day, they're out eating, when Fiver suddenly gets a terrible premonition.
A terrible thing is coming.
What do you mean?
Look. The field. It's covered with blood.
Blood?
And I remind you, this movie is rated PG. Seriously, this is nothing. Did you think the clown nightmare from the Brave Little Toaster was scary? Ha ha! This movie will fuck you up. Thinking that they need to warn the rest of the Warren, Hazel and Fiver try to meet with the Chief Rabbit and run into Bigwig along the way. Bigwig might sound like a ridiculous name, and she'd be right, since his real name in the rabbit language of Lapine is Flaily, which means furhead. Bigwig's parents were probably assholes. And if the rest of the movie is any indicator, they probably got run over by farming equipment. Anyway, the meeting doesn't go well with the Chief Rabbit for one simple reason.
What ought we to do?
Go away, all of us, now.
Now? In May? The mating season?
This guy knows what's up. Needless to say, the request goes ignored, so Hazel and Fiver decide to just leave on their own, taking whoever's willing to come with them. By now, the Owsla, the rabbit police, are onto them, trapping several escaping rabbits, with the captain of the Owsla, Holly, cornering Hazel and less than a dozen others.
You'll all come with me.
Is he alone?
I am Captain of Owsla.
Go. Now. Or we'll kill you.
Watership down, rated PG. Bring the kids. Be ready for uncomfortable questions.
It's you'll be killed.
Bigwig!
Yes, you know me.
So Holly flees and Hazel's group runs away, now bringing Bigwig with them. Hazel and the others make it to the woods, but they're not out of the woods yet. Fucking writer's block.
Alendri. This way.
Thus far, the movie's been a pretty good adaptation of the book, condensing much of the prose to tell a simpler but still complete story. One of the more integral transitions is the use of the Lapine language. Lapine is really just a few choice words that Adams made up to enrich the story, like Silflay, which means to go above ground and eat, Narn, which means something nice or pleasant, and Fefa, which means cat. The book worked these in through context and prose, through dialogue, sometimes through footnotes, and if that wasn't enough, there's a complete glossary at the end of the book. So by the end of the book, when Bigwig says Silflay Haraka u Emble Ra, you know exactly what he means. The movie takes advantage of this, but it sometimes isn't able to really explain what certain words mean.
Sir, we've picked up this Tlessi and brought him in.
Oh, Embley of Frith, you fools!
Now, this isn't always a problem, like this scene on the road.
The man-thing killed it.
A man-thing?
A hoodoo-doo. It runs on it.
The what?
The hoodoo-doo.
By the way, hoodoo-doo is my favorite Lapine word. The group continues through the woods, across a stream, and into a field when they suffer their first loss.
Violet's gone.
And I'm a little perplexed by this scene because not only does this not happen in the book, this contradicts a line from the book. I'm skipping ahead a bit, but the group eventually runs into Captain Hawley along their journey to the New Warren. He asks how many of the exiles survived, to which Hazel answers, every one. So if every rabbit made it to the New Warren in the book, why change that for the movie? To show that it was dangerous? Well, it was already plenty dangerous, and as we'll see in a following scene, there are plenty of ways to get hurt. I don't know, it just feels wholly unnecessary to me. Moving on, the rabbits eventually find themselves in desperate need of rest. Fortunately, they run into this fellow, voiced by Denholm Elliott.
Charleston! Am I on?
My name is Cowslip, and I don't want anything.
Yeah, what about the others?
We have plenty of empty burrows, if that's what you mean.
Cowslip seems friendly enough, offering shelter and even plenty of food for the worn-out travelers. Some of Hazel's group starts thinking that this might be a nice place to stay forever, but Fiver doesn't trust Cowslip or his warren.
They think I'm mad, but you know I'm not, and you still won't listen. Hazel?
And it turns out that Fiver is right when Bigwig runs into a trap the next morning.
No good binding wire.
Run, Fiver. Run to the warren and get the others, Blackberry, Silver, and Cowslip. Be quick, he'll die.
And if the music isn't enough to build up your sense of dread, then how about watching Bigwig choking up blood before he stops moving altogether?
Bigwig, the peg's out. You're free.
I think he's gone.
We've got you out, Bigwig. You're free.
Whose broad idea was it to terrify kids with this? Combine that with Cowslip's warren being filled with fatalistic weirdos and you have a nice, juicy trauma sandwich for the kids.
Rabbits will always need tricks.
No, we need dignity, and above all, the will to accept our fate.
Was Richard Adams just another pseudonym for Klaus Pop? Fortunately, Bigwig is still alive, and to make things even better, the rabbits spot the perfect home for them on top of a hill just across a wide valley.
That's where we ought to be. That's where we have to get to.
But there are two obstacles to go through before they make it. The first is a farm which Hazel and another rabbit, Pipkin, explore before getting chased off by a cat. The second?
It's Captain Hawley.
Hawley confirms that Fiver was right and that a disaster did strike the Sandalford Warren.
Men came, filled in the burrows. Couldn't get out. There was a strange sound. Hissing. The air turned bad. Runs blocked with dead bodies. We couldn't get out.
Watership Down, rated PG. Now emotionally scarring viewers of all ages. But finally, after days of running, the group finally comes across their new warren in a land called Watership Down, which is a real place, by the way. Their new home is a warm hill, overlooking the entire countryside all around them.
Oh, Frith on the hills! He made it all for us!
Frith may have made it, but Fiver found it.
They have space, they have food, they have safety, and they have no women.
I think we've done very well for ourselves.
But we don't have any does.
Does?
Fortunately, salvation comes in the form of a bird named Kihar, voiced by Zero Mustel.
We help you.
I know the movie rating system was weighted differently when this came out, but seriously, who thought this was okay for kids? Kihar is an interesting character, and not just because Mustel gives a great performance.
Go away. We no good but I walk. Plenty good.
He's one of the only characters whose personality isn't shown into the background like so many others when compared to the book. In fact, only Hazel, Fiver, Bigwig, Kihar, and the eventual antagonist General Woundwort get even a nod from their literary counterparts. It's kind of a shame not hearing Dandelion's stories or seeing Silver trying to build himself up as a badass, but given the time and animation constraints, it's understandable that these things got cut.
You stupid bunnies! You got no mates! Where are mates? Where are cheeks? Plenty trouble for you!
Kihar offers to search for more female rabbits since he's the ultimate wingman. Oh, come on, he has wings. I had to. When Kihar doesn't return after a time, Hazel takes a few of the others to the nearby farm to rescue a few domesticated rabbits. However, the farmers catch them in the act and...
Keep torch on, men.
Dandelion and Blackberry return to the warren with the bad news.
Fiver, there's been some trouble. Hazel's been shot.
But Fiver refuses to believe that Hazel is dead, and this leads us to the musical portion of the movie.
Bright eyes, burning like fire. Bright eyes, how can you close and fade?
The song Bright Eyes, sung by Art Garfunkel, plays while Fiver searches for his older brother. Combined with the grim imagery, the energy of this song comes across as haunting but gentle, symbolizing death not as this horrid dark thing, but soft and sad. We also see the Black Rabbit of Inlay leaping about, almost as if leading Fiver to Hazel. Think of him as the bunny Grim Reaper. And from what we see later in the movie, I think this is a very fitting moment to describe how the Black Rabbit of Inlay works, as long as rabbits aren't being strangled or gassed out of their homes. Fortunately, Fiver does find Hazel, who's only been shot in the flank. Pretty sure that's not how you're supposed to get your cutie mark. And subsequently, Kihar returns with not only a rabbit sighting, but a way to fix Hazel right up.
Always with gun is coming, little black stone. You never see? Take out black stones, he get better, yeah?
Kihar tells the others of a warren called Ephrafa, a totalitarian state run by a monstrous rabbit named General Woundwort. However, it's overpopulated and has a number of rabbits who want to escape. Holly can attest to that, having escaped from Ephrafa before he ran into Hazel and the others. Although, I'm not sure how he got from his old warren to Ephrafa, then to Hazel in less time than it took Hazel's group to get from the old warren to Watership Down. Seriously, how do you run so far and so fast?
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
However, they don't have a lot of options, so they set forth to rescue the trapped rabbits of Ephrafa. The Ephrafans all live heavily regulated lives and aren't even allowed to eat outside of certain times. Dissenters are severely punished, like poor Blackavar here, who tried to escape at least twice.
If you ask me, he won't last much longer. He'll meet a blacker rabbit than himself one of these nights.
That's racist.
A nice design choice that the movie made is that the Ephrafans' eyes are all blue, which sets them all apart from Hazel's group. The escape plan is simple. Bigwig infiltrates Ephrafa, meets a contact that Holly met when he escaped, gathers all the escapees that he can, then they all float down the river on a boat. And it would be much easier to achieve this if Kihar wasn't kind of a loud idiot.
Listen carefully.
Something I should note by this point would be Adam's writing style. He's very eloquent and writes with a proper British air, but he can be a little long-winded. While the movie moves along at a moderate pace, the book can sometimes drag and takes a number of detours, often telling stories of the ancient rabbit hero El Herrera. It's not a bad style, and considering that this book started as a series of stories that Adams told his daughters, it's no surprise that there's so much to it. I'm just glad that the adaptation trimmed enough fat without sacrificing characters or story. Unlike this scatterbrained crapshoot Endless Love. So Bigwig is questioned by General Woundwort, voiced by Harry Andrews.
What were you doing?
I've come to join Ephrafa.
Why?
I'm surprised you ask.
Sir.
Bigwig is ultimately granted access since he's large and has Owsle experience, but it isn't long before he falls under suspicion.
Bigwig! That white bird you were talking to this morning.
Talking to, sir?
You were very close to it. Why?
Well, I've never been hurt by a bird.
That's not what I asked.
I gotta say, it's no surprise considering the cast, but this is some pretty good acting here. There are no over-the-top reactions, no flat lines, and just about everyone gets a chance to put in those little touches, like simply breathing the right way, something which many viewers may not consider when they think about voice acting. Andrews puts out a strong, commanding performance as Woundwort, and just by his voice alone, you can understand how he rules over his Warren with such strength. Likewise, Bigwig is shown as strong and steadfast, if maybe a little sarcastic at times.
I'm in a mist.
Bigwig,
Everything's bad.
no!
I have a funny feeling in my toe.
And of course, John Hurt's performance of Hazel is brilliant, showing the reluctant leader just trying to stand tall and make the best calls that he can with very limited information.
What was left unfinished on the riverbank will be finished now.
It would be better for both of us if we could come to terms.
The voice acting alone makes the movie worth watching. So the night of the escape comes, and a doe named Heisenflay works with Bigwig to get as many rabbits out as possible, even helping poor Blackavar get out. But Woundwort gets word of this and runs into the group at an old railroad bridge. And this is where Bigwig delivers my favorite line of the movie.
You traitors! Campion, get this miserable group back to their marks. I'll settle with you myself, Bigwig. There's no need to take you back.
Come on and try, you crack-brained slave driver.
Kihar shows up just in time and knocks Woundwort to the ground, then leads the escapees to the river, where Hazel and the others are waiting for them in a boat. And no, I'm not playing the song. There are enough references in this review as it is. Any more in the episode will capsize. Our heroes think that they're safe back at their warren, but Woundwort is persistent and tracks them down. Hazel and the others are all trapped underground, with the Efrephans digging in, when Fiver gets a vision.
Fiver, wake up!
Oh, there's a dog loose in the wood. There's a dog loose in the wood.
We need to cross because there's a dog loose in the wood.
He leaves Bigwig in charge and takes several runners with him to the nearby farm. But it isn't long before Woundwort breaks through, and Blackavar vows to defend his new home and take revenge on his tormentor. Watership Down! Rated PG! Check the back of your ticket for a recommended therapist. Meanwhile, Hazel and his runners free the dog at the farm and get him to chase them all the way back to the warren, using him against the attacking Efrephans.
Run! Run for your lives! Run!
The movie reaches a climax as we get the most horrific imagery in the movie yet. No, not that. Not that one either. There we are. Animated dog testicles.
Run for your lives!
Woundwort abandons his revenge for the moment to rally his troops against the rampaging dog, but it doesn't work so well.
Come back and fight! Dogs aren't dangerous!
So, Woundwort's forces are defeated, and the new warren enjoys several years of peace with many new generations to come. Hazel served as the chief rabbit until one day when he's visited by the Black Rabbit of Inlay.
I've come to ask if you would like to join my hostler. We shall be glad to have you. And I know you'd like it. You've been feeling tired, haven't you?
And so Hazel, having lived a wonderful life, shuts his eyes one last time and falls asleep, joining the Black Rabbit to his next life. Obviously, I think this movie is pretty good. Like I said, the voice acting is great, the watercolor backgrounds are beautiful, and the music sets the mood just right every time and is very enjoyable throughout. Some of the imagery is still pretty graphic, leading me to believe that some people might not want their kids to watch it, but hey, childhood trauma builds character, right? As I mentioned at the start, the animation can get a little junky with what looks like some limited animation, but that problem gets easier to ignore the longer you watch, kind of like reading subtitles. The movie gets a 4 out of 5. Despite my jokes about the story being bad for kids, this was one of the best books I ever read when I was younger. It was one of the more difficult books I had read, but I loved the challenge. In many ways, this is a novel with several short stories thrown in to flesh out the universe. While rereading this book, I had to wonder if Adams used to work as a zoologist, since he goes into extensive detail about rabbit behavior. Because of this, the pacing does drag a little, but the depths of the themes are incredible. This is more than just a simple survival story and has elements of authoritarianism, war, rape, slavery, and all sorts of dark subjects like that. This is much more than a simple story about some traveling bunnies. The book gets a high 4 out of 5. Despite the mass condensing of several story elements, the movie did a great job adapting the source material. Now, the movie did have to make some sacrifices, but most of those were things that the story could afford to lose, like some of the side characters and their qualities, the stories of El Aurora.
El Aurora and his trickery don't really mean very much to us, charming as it is.
And a lot of the in-depth explanations about rabbits in general. What it left in were relevant to the story and several of the main characters without having to rush the pacing or drastically alter various elements. As an adaptation, Watership Down gets a 4 out of 5. Good work, England, you're 2 for 2.
All the world will be your enemy, Prince with 1,000 enemies. And whenever they catch you, they will kill you. But first they must catch you. Digger, listener, runner, Prince with the swift warning. Be cunning, and your people will never be destroyed.
Data log 224-173. I've analyzed this thing 100 times, and I still don't understand what it is. I'm tempted to find out what will happen if I press it, but if it really did make a man explode, then experimenting could be deadly. The woman who delivered this button has not returned, and I have even more questions now than before. She's not lying about how advanced this machine is. There are components I am not familiar with, doing things that even I could at best theorize at. What I've gathered so far is that there's something within that differentiates between users on a genetic level by scanning skin cells. Heaven help me, but there's so much more to this thing that I can gather on my own with current methods. How it was possible to make this device, I don't know. But I intend to find out.